It's important to note that we cannot rely on the mainstream media to present all sides of the story. Hi everyone, Nadine Wellwood, and I have 3 things today that I want to talk primarily about. If you like this video, I'm going to ask you to share this video because it's important to note that we cannot rely on the mainstream media to present all sides of the story. And one of the topics today I want to talk about is exactly that, our state-funded media sources. I won't call them fake news because they're not necessarily fake news. They're filled with a bunch of half-truths. And I want to talk to you a bit about that today. And I want to make sure that this information is spread and shared amongst as many people as possible so we can make our own informed decisions. So I'm going to start with media. Then I want to talk a little bit about Miss Rachel Notley. I think she's lost her mind. I think she's crazy. And then in addition to that, I want to talk about a little clip that caught my interest, more out of curiosity than anything else, about potentially Mr. Gates having spoken to the CIA about some vaccinations and how they could be used to alter people's mind and change their behavior. So just saying. Okay, let's start with issue number 1. I'm going to put up some clips associated with this as well. So be sure to stay with me because I do have clips that show what people have said. It's not me making this up. And here's the difference between somebody like me commenting on the news or an article or whatever's been going on in the world. Is I'm not a journalist. I'm not claiming to be a journalist. I'm a person who has an opinion, some very strong ones, as and for me, it's let's be clear, this is biased. I have my own opinion and I'm stating my own opinion. I'm providing some evidence, yes, and some facts to back that up, but I'm not a journalist. I'm not presenting the news. Because if you're presenting the news, and please forgive me today because we were talking earlier about Bit-ch-ute, for example, and having another platform to have these types of videos available. And I said, well, I'm about to do my own Bit-ch-ute today because that's exactly how I'm feeling. The world gets crazier and crazier. And, back to the topic at hand, news. If you are presenting the news, then present the facts. Otherwise, it's an opinion piece or be a tabloid. I don't care. But to present yourself as news and then present nothing but half-truths and or spin the narrative to suit what it is you're trying to accomplish, that is not news. And that is an injustice that you are doing that to the millions of people who honestly believe that the news is unbiased and fact. So stop. And I think our laws, if we're going to do anything right in this country, should be actually cracking down on these CTVs and globals who present half-truths and misinformation to the public and pawning it off as actual news. Here's my example. So Global News posted 3 men charged on the weekend for organizing a rally. One of the gentlemen that they have charged is Artur Polinsky. Now, if you've been following me, you know who this gentleman is. And interestingly enough, Global, in their article, failed conveniently to mention that this is Pastor Artur Polinsky. Oh, convenient. This has nothing to do with the fact that, it was just a man organizing a protest. And here, to make it interesting, they've taken two separate events. They took an event that happened on Saturday, and they took another separate event that happened on Sunday, and they've kind of just merged the two, using whichever one was most convenient for them to present the narrative they want you to hear in the presentation of their storyline that they want you to know. So they talk about he was charged with not wearing a mask and contravening a health order, charged with not having a permit. Well, he wasn't one of the organizers for the Saturday Freedom March rally, which Global and CTV have both called anti-mask rallies. These are not anti-mask rallies. They are freedom marches. People are not there per se because they're being told to wear a mask. They are there because they are terrified that we are having our freedoms and our civil liberties taken out from underneath us, and nobody's saying anything. And I think they are damn well justified in doing so. That is why we have the ability to assemble in this country. And it is so critical that people continue to do this. And here's the reason why. Because lots of unlawful things happen under the law. And we've seen this in every tyranny that has ever been performed against humanity. Governments corrupt. They can make whatever laws they want. It doesn't mean they're just. And it is the responsibility of a citizenship to challenge its government when those laws are no longer lawful and they're no longer just. So just keep that in mind. People on these Saturday afternoons that go out to this Freedom March, they're there with their families. They're not there necessarily for themselves. They are there for their children because they want their children to grow up in a free country, which they right now are afraid they are losing. And there are many people who agree with them. Right now we have people who are the silent majority. I honestly believe we are at a crossroads, Canada. More so than any other country. The U.S. is a different beast altogether, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But in Canada, we have Justin Trudeau, who is full steam ahead on punishing oil and gas, free enterprise, small and medium-sized businesses, the individual, everyday society person who is trying to earn an honest living. We are the ones that are suffering. So the 50 richest people in Canada through this pandemic have gotten richer. Meanwhile, the average everyday person, some of us have seen no impact. More of us have seen loss of jobs, loss of income. We're now dependent upon the government for our substance, to pay our rent, to buy food. That's scary. That's why these people are taking their Saturdays. You don't think that they'd rather be doing something else? Of course they would. So let's be reasonable. And I want to talk about the Calgary police calling these gatherings illegal. No, they're not illegal at all. This is a part of living in a free society. We have a constitutional right to challenge our government if we feel that it is being unlawful. And for them to say, to punish, they're going after those, to ticket those who flaunt the law. This is Ryan Aliff, I guess, is the gentleman who gave the press release. And they're saying here that, the police do not wish to punish. Well, what do you think a fine is? What do you think a penalty is? These people don't have $1,000 or $1,200 to pay these fines. Pastor Polinsky, in his Sunday, which he may not have had a permit for because it's been taken away because they don't want him feeding the hungry during COVID. Well, we talk about our most vulnerable. And if feeding the hungry is not considered to be an essential service, I'd like to know what is. Because this man on Sunday, not Saturday, on Sunday, showed up to do what he's done for 21 years with the permit that he pays to City Hall. So they've taken his permit away. They've told him he's not to do this because of COVID. But he's a pastor. I brought up Mother Teresa in my interview. Let's be honest here. Mother Teresa associated with people who were a lot sicker, a lot more contagious than the homeless here in Calgary. He's doing what he's always done, and that's feed the hungry. And now that's a crime. He's being punished. So don't tell me this is not a punishment. It is a punishment. Police officers have the discretion, and I have spoken to some of them. And again, please, we all need to be respectful. Do not condemn every police officer you see. Do not confront them with anger, because many of them are on our side. They think that they're put between a rock and a hard place right now. They're being pushed to do one thing, and yet many of them, their heart and their conscience is not there. They're on our side, noting that I don't want to punish people for voicing their concerns. So just keep that in mind when you are, attending some of these rallies, which I know some of you are. They're not bad people, but they are in a very difficult situation right now. And on that note, before I go too much further, I want to address, I'm very big on giving credit where credit is due. And before I get into talking about Miss Notley here, I want to talk about Mr. Jason Kenney. And forgive me, Mr. Kenney, I know that I am not always the one on your side. And I have been pushing to have more information fairly presented, the other side of the story. I am against some of the regulations and some of the policies that are being forced down people's throats right now. Absolutely. But I also want to acknowledge that I don't envy your position. It takes great courage to stand up to the bullies, namely, we'll get into Notley as the opposition here, but we'll also get into the media, which is not presenting the facts. They're not presenting the facts of the information fairly or accurately. And they have an agenda. So, kudos to you. And I actually did. I sent a letter to Jason Kenney. I doubt very much that he's read it, but I wanted to show my support for, look, thank you for not taking these draconian measures, which you've somewhat implemented, but taking a light stance with it. Because people are confused, people are angry, people are hurt, and I agree with you. If you're going to force this upon people, you're going to make matters worse. People like to be asked to do things. People want to know that their government actually trusts them to do what is right for their family, what is right for their livelihoods, what is right for their children. Government can't know that. It's impossible. This is why we have a free society. We have a democracy. Why? So that the individual is responsible for themselves. Because government, what is right for you may not be right for me. If you fall into that vulnerable category, you have high blood pressure, you have diabetes, you are above 70 years old, you have a compromised immune system, you need to be taking care of yourself. And everybody needs to be respectful. But again, we can't ignore the science and the data, and the healthy population, who is typically not affected by this disease, needs to be able to live their lives. We have children. We have to feed. We have mortgages that need to be paid. We have small business owners who have given everything. And I know I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, given their heart, their soul to their business. And now they're told, you don't give a damn. Close it down. How is that fair? That's not justice. So thank you. I do give credit where credit is due, and I don't want to just criticize all the time either. I think, in all fairness, there's some things that Jason Kenney has done right. I think he could be doing better. I'm not letting up, but at the same time, thank you for what you have done and the consideration that you have shown. Now, I want to talk about Rachel Notley. So here's where this starts. The Minister of Justice, Casey Madu, has stated the need to balance enforcement with the need to respect our charter rights. That is an incredible statement. That is fair, it is balanced, it is just. Quote, you need to balance the need for enforcement with the need to respect our charter rights. Acknowledging we do have rights. The other thing that he said here, and we need to note this because this is very important, we do not suspend our charter rights even in a pandemic. Got that? Watch the clip.
If Alberta Sheriff went unanswered, Casey Madu is urging Albertans to stay away from large gatherings, but he says those political protesters are also protected by the Charter.
People still have right, and I am not going to be that Minister of Justice or the Solicitor General that is going to, because I want to issue ticket, thereby create more problems.
I think he's wrong. The laws are not unconstitutional. It's an idiotic statement.
Official opposition leader Rachel Notley saying she's deeply concerned that Madu may be saying his own laws are not enforceable.
But the problem is he's the Attorney General. So he's now gone on to create profound confusion about the applicability of the laws in question.
Major gatherings in other parts of the province this weekend saw no ticketing either.
Miss Notley's response. He is delivering exactly the wrong message. To be clear, she states, I think he is wrong. The laws are not unconstitutional. It is an idiotic statement. Wow, some pretty strong words there, Miss Notley. And obviously, you're a constitutional lawyer, so you know whether it's constitutional or not, right? Yes, that's your area of expertise. And, I wonder, and I'm going to play the left's game here a little bit, because I'm tired myself personally of the left calling everybody else a racist. But Miss Notley, would you have the same problem here if maybe Mr. Madu wasn't a black man? Is it maybe your white privilege that's skewing your perspective, that you seem to think that you're the person who's right here and he's wrong? Just saying, racist. How's it feel, by the way, to be on the other side of that? Because that's the that's going on today, right? If you're going to speak out against color or race, poor Mr. Jason Kenney, again, I'm going to come to his defense today, was talking about large gatherings. Can we please minimize large gatherings? He said, some of the immigrants that we have in the country, and it's true, because they're more community oriented. It has nothing to do with a systemic racist problem. It's just reality. People from Islamic families, people from Filipino families, they gather together in larger groups. Why? Because they still have a sense of community. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing. It's a great thing. We should all be doing it. But he was called out and said that he's a racist. Anyway, back to reality. So Miss Notley, what would you have us do? For anybody right now who thinks that she's the answer to the problems, she is the problem. She will have you sitting at home, locked up, not being able to associate with anyone. And I'm going, and she is not an expert when it comes to constitutional law. So, you know what? The Minister of Justice, thank you. Good for you. balance the need for enforcement and the need to respect our charter rights. Thank you for acknowledging that we actually have rights. Because Notley doesn't seem to think we have any. Even Dr. Hinshaw, again, recognized the right to protest. Now, they all have their ideas as to how that should look and ways to do that safely. But again, you know, acknowledging the fact that we have the right to protest. Do you want to change it up? Okay. No. Perfect. Great. So with respect to COVID, there's a lot of false information or misinformation or half-truths that are going around. And one of the things I want to draw your attention to, and we're going to put this up for you here to see as well, is that Statistics Canada tracks some amazing data. And I've mentioned this before. And one of the ones that I want to bring up is Rebel News actually did a really good job on this at presenting the number of deaths. And they break them down by months. And the number of deaths in April spiked significantly pretty much across Canada. And they're showing the number of deaths all the way through, and they go up to the end of September because that's as far as the data is available currently. And it shows the number of deaths seasonally way, way below average right now. And that's interesting considering we've got a bunch of people saying that our healthcare system is overwhelmed. We've got people apparently dropping off like flies due to COVID. And yet the reality is that's not true. If we look at the Stats Canada data, you'll see it here. The data clearly shows that there were less deaths in September, and it's been decreasing since April all the way back down. We're not overwhelmed. And the other thing I want to bring up with that is Alberta has the capacity for 1,081 ICU beds. Now, we have only about 270 on any given day. And if you consider the 97 at present, that can change, obviously, but 97 at present, that represents about 35% of those beds. So 35% of the beds in ICU, current regular everyday capacity, is being used for COVID patients. So if they're being overwhelmed, it's not from COVID. There's other things going on here. And then we have the capacity to ramp up to 1,081 beds. So 1,081 beds puts us at under 6% currently of those beds being used for COVID patients. Does that sound like anybody should be overwhelmed to you? I don't think so. So why is it that the media is now saying we need to have field hospitals? We don't need to have field hospitals. We have more than enough capacity. We are at 6% of our capacity. This is nothing but fear-mongering. People need to go, they need to do a little bit of digging, scratch beneath the surface. Because the media that we have, they have a narrative, they have an agenda, and believe me, it is nothing to do with COVID-19. I want to read, because this came from one of my, I do have some friends who are nurses, and I have some friends who are doctors, and all of them would agree with me right now that they are not overwhelmed as a result of COVID. Some of them are overwhelmed as a result of the policies that their administration has taken. So for example, this is an email, and I'm going to read it. The COVID management has it so staff goes home if they have any symptom, and they must quarantine for 14 days. Don't think that's going to cause a few labor shortages. I have a cough. I got a headache today. Those are potential COVID symptoms, so I'm now in quarantine for 14 days. Yeah, not contributing to the labor shortage and the overwhelm of the system at all. No efforts have been made to second any staff or secure any staff from other departments or bring back retired nurses or doctors as would be normal in a real emergency. So we've made no attempt to bring back our retired doctors or nurses. We haven't made any effort to even request the doctors that we have, let's say from our oncology units, to assist on the floors in the general hospital or ICU. Why? You want to know why? Because they haven't needed them. That's why. They haven't needed them. So that's the reality. You'd think that a doctor would refuse helping out a colleague if we were in a true pandemic, if this was a true emergency? I don't think so. And I can verify this with people who I personally know, who are doctors, who are nurses. Here's words, their words, not mine. In one case, I thought better to read it from their perspective than from mine. Only now are we doubling up rooms with other COVID patients. Previous to this, everybody had their own room. Lovely. Previous field hospitals deployed in the spring was when we had the spike in deaths, and you saw that in the stats can note information, and they weren't used then. So why are we doing them now when they're not needed? And here's a note. They are using the PCR test set way too sensitive in the province, which is in turn ratcheting up our numbers. And I just want to, and they say here, look into Daniel Smith's interview with JK the other day to hear about the details on that juicy tidbit. Does that not serve Justin Trudeau's kind of agenda of making us Albertans look a little bit hillbilly when, we're the ones apparently today that have taken the least severe measures on COVID and our numbers are skyrocketing? Well, if you set the test too high, should that be a shock to anybody? If it is, I got real estate here, waterfront for you for sale. That shouldn't shock anyone. Again, what was it? Statistics. Liars use statistics, and stats don't lie, but liars use statistics. You can make statistics look like however you want. So I'm going to leave it there. But that's some of the things from my nursing friend who works inside the hospital, and there's others. That's my rant for today. And the whole world's gone mad, and I want people to know this is, at these rallies, it's not about masks. I don't care if you wear a mask, you don't wear a mask. You do what's right for you. But I have to do what's right for me. I respect your rights. You need to respect mine. And government is not the one to be defining what is a normal person, what is normal behavior. They should not be interfering in our personal lives. And again, thank you, Mr. Kenney, for at least in part, even if it is a small part, standing up against some of these ridiculous claims by our media and the opposition, and hold firm to the fact that there are better ways to deal with this. And thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do share with your friends. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, the notification, the little bell, so that you get our next video. Tomorrow I am going to be doing another video, which you'll see in a few days, with one of the lawyers who attended one of these rallies. And she talks about the Charter of Rights, and you do have the right to say no. Until then, have a good one.